A job seeker right now, how can they figure out if they're going through imposter syndrome or not?
It's very easy to fall into the trap of like imposter syndrome, because what happens if I get into the job and they find out that I'm not the right fit?
At the beginning of it, I was scared shitless. At the end of it, I knew so much more.
So there's 4 horsemen of the job search.
It's the first step towards the right direction.
So those are the 4 main reasons people are not getting jobs.
And when I started working with you, I got well versed with the How to Job platform. I realized, how can I use that as a position of power instead of my weakness?
To extrapolate that for a job seeker, they need to have imposter syndrome in job search. That's going to be an interesting one.
Yep.
How do you feel about it?
Well, I think everyone goes through a version of it, and it is an important thing that we need to address, because even if it's in, if we're talking in terms of job hunt, career growth, living day to day, it is an important point that we need to discuss, because everyone goes through it, but we aren't necessarily aware how do we tackle it, and what are the things that we are missing out on just because we don't address it. I think that's really important as well.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think just an important point as well that I wanted to touch on is you got into a role that required more experience than you had at the time you started. Did you ever feel...
Oh, yeah, for my first 6 months into the role, I kid you not, I was scared to death sending out an email to a client. Internal, I was okay. Client, I was like, holy shit. If I send out this email and if they find out that I don't know anything that I'm talking about, which is untrue now, I do know some stuff, but
Some stuff.
It's man, like the best thing about the company I work in and the role that I have is there's thousands of products and we deal with so many different clients. You cannot know all of them. That's the best thing. And people are always receptive to questions, and they will take time out of their day to explain you something, because some of the systems that we have are legacy systems and which are not very straightforward, and they are major barrier to execution, and unfortunately they don't get addressed like in any big company, barrier to execution. And so it's for someone who's coming new into a company, there's so many legacy stuff that someone needs to know about. And I was still figuring out some admin stuff. And the more I get experience in my role, the more I get to know about, okay, you handle the situation like this. I'm way more, I lead client calls now, whereas when I first started, I was like, as I said, I was scared to death sending out even an email to a client. So I think a really nice point would be addressing what's the term imposter syndrome.
Yeah. My understanding, and I speak to a lot of job seekers every single day, and some job seekers tell me, Milo, I don't know if I can do the job. Will a company hire me if I don't have the experience? What happens if I get into the job and they find out that I'm not the right fit, which is the main reason of what that imposter syndrome is. So what if they find out? And I think it's really easy to fall into that trap, to go into a job expecting for you to know everything, and then realizing actually that the companies know that you don't know. If you get an entry-level position, you have to go in there thinking, this company knows that I don't know everything, but they're willing to give me a shot so I can build the experience required. And you have to sort of think about it as a trade-off, which is if you don't have the hard skills, you have all these other things to talk about. You're fit for the company via your personality, why you want to join that industry. Are you passionate about the product or the industry or the company or, what the company does? And that's a good trade-off to be able to sell you being a good fit. Now, it's very easy to fall into the trap of like imposter syndrome, because you get into a role and you might make some mistakes. Like in your case, 6 months, you were kind of scared to send an email.
I was like, first of all, I think I did not sleep first 3 months until I got my probation cleared. I did not. I don't think I even told a lot of people about my job either. I was like, I don't know, man. Even if I need to pass the probation first, then I can actually speak about it. And then like my first 6 months into it, I was like, okay, I'm genuinely scared. But then after 6 months, I was given a renewal to handle all by myself. So I was not only doing an entire renewal, but dealing with this client based out of the States in a major bank, and I'm handling that throughout the process. And I'm like, whoa. And at the beginning of it, I was scared shitless. at the end of it, I knew so much more, not only about the product that we were renewing, but the internal processes that our company goes through, and how do I need to present it to the client, and what does the client want, how does our business align with that. There were so many things to learn, and that alone just helped me get, I wouldn't say get rid of my imposter syndrome, because as I said, everyone goes through a version of imposter syndrome in their whole life every single day. But it did make me more comfortable and more competent in the job that I do every day.
When did you find that you had that conscious competence? When was that confidence built?
I think it's because even in my first 6 months, I was shadowing quite a few calls, and I would just make notes. I think my OneNote is filled with like thousands of notes for my first 6 months, and I was just trying to understand all the terminologies, because we have so many products and so many terminology, so many acronyms. You can't, if you don't know them, it's very, and especially if you're new, it's very hard to get around them. And I was, and then when I first like, and I'm very lucky to be in a very well versed and well experienced team, and the people that I work with are very experienced in their job as well, and not only that, but they're very experienced in bringing me in at the right time, so making sure that they don't overwhelm me, but also giving me free space to run around with. And especially one of the person that I work with, she's really good at it, and she has to be, because she handles a major German bank and two biggest French banks. So she is also very cautious, because she does not want me to go into a client meeting and screw that up, but also she wants me to develop. And she kept bringing me, and I was like, okay, Vaibhav, I'm going to get you on this call, just attend and make notes. Later on, we'll discuss what you learn and what and if you have any questions. Those follow-ups were amazing.
Excellent.
Yeah,
and that's because of the company.
Exactly,
So
because
the company cared
the
about
right
you.
leadership. Yeah.
Yeah. So then the real solution then would be, if you feel that you have imposter syndrome before you get into a role, you want to find a company that can recognize that you want to build the skills, that you want to put that work in. Because some companies will expect you to know everything from day one, and they're probably not going to be the right fit.
But then again, that's for people who are more experienced in their careers. It's not for graduates or entry-level people. Entry-level people expect you to not know stuff. And the best thing about being a graduate is, and if when you're joining a new company, is, hey, can I have 15 minutes of your time? Let's grab a coffee. Understand as much as you can. Your first 3 months, people do not expect you to, go running with stuff. And that's quite reasonable, because you're still getting a hold of everything that's that the company has to offer, that you have to do. But when you see these people, it's like, oh, my first 3 months I achieved this target. I call it bullshit, because you're just trying to understand what the company does, where you fit in the company, and you understand your KPIs and you try to work towards them.
Yeah. What are the different types of imposter syndrome do you think that exist? Because you've got the graduates, which is kind of okay to have that imposter syndrome. It's okay not to know everything.
Yep.
The company expects you to not know everything. They just expect you to be the type of person that wants to learn and build on the experience that the company can teach you. In your case, that's what your company did. And you have a conscious competence now to the role that you're doing. What about if you have the experience and you go into a company and then you start to think, hang on, I'm good at what I do, but I also have that imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
How do you think that's handled?
That is very interesting that you bring that up. So before I get into that, because I looked up a little bit up on imposter syndrome, and the clinical definition of imposter syndrome is feeling inadequate, even having achievements that back you up. So you have achieved something, but you still feel inadequate, that you can't do it, which is quite strange, because you have things to show that you have done, but you feel, oh man, I don't think I can do that. Why is that? And that made me question, is it similar to self-doubt? So self-doubt is something when you're going on a new venture, trying out something new, doing something, and when you're in a fresh waters, everyone has self-doubt. But imposter syndrome specifically is feeling that inadequacy when you already have achievements to back yourself up. And especially the case that you mentioned, people, like the higher they go, that some of them, if, the imposter syndrome remains unaddressed and it just grows. And even after spending 2 or 5 years within a company and having done a lot of stuff, helping the company grow and growing in their role, they feel that because I can differentiate it in layman terms between two types of imposter syndromes. One being a perfectionist. If everything is not a-okay, even if one thing is wrong, shit, yeah, I don't deserve this. But maybe I shouldn't be here.
And then you add the job search and not getting an interview, getting constantly rejected.
Exactly.
It builds onto that feeling.
Yep.
And that probably causes an even bigger feeling of like, hey, not only do I not think I can do this, I'm not getting any interviews. Nothing's happening. And that builds onto more and more of it, which kind of makes sense from that point of view.
Yep.
But it's important to know, and I'm glad we're speaking about this today, that the challenges, so there's 4 horsemen of the job search. This is what I like to say because it simplifies the process. You have ATS, which is applicant tracking software. They look at your CV and then, well, software does, not a human, and you get auto-rejected. Then you have AI in the emergence, not ChatGPT, but AI as in changing what you do for a living in terms of what companies look for. Some of the tasks that you would be doing would be automated, so therefore getting into a job is a different requirement of skill. Then you have something called unicorn jobs, which is jobs that have like 5 years of experience as a graduate. They technically don't exist. So companies want to rack up as much experience as possible to get the perfect candidate. And then you have market saturation. So those are the 4 main reasons that people are not getting jobs.
And now add imposter syndrome
That
to
add
it.
imposter syndrome to that, exactly.
Yeah.
And then you think, okay, so do I have imposter syndrome and I may lack just a little bit of confidence? And by the way, if you lack confidence in your job search, it's completely normal. Everybody does, even the people that get multiple offers.
And I think you need to have some version of that so that you don't become overconfident and start going crazy. And it's like, oh yeah, I can do this, do this.
Yeah.
You need to be humble about it, but also be super confident. That's what I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I think everybody goes through it to some degree. If you've got a lot of experience and you get into a role that requires just about the same experience you have, you're going to think, what if someone has more experience than I do and they'll just clinch that job last second, which also happens. But then you've got graduates who have no experience and then they get into a job market that, so think about graduates right now, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, they got into university, they started learning for a role that looks very different today because of AI, because of technological changes, because of economic changes.
Dude, I did computer science engineering. And when I go on Instagram, all the people who are computer science students in university in the States are jobless. And they're like, there's no job for computers because AI basically made English the new coding language. And people are not like... Stanford graduates are like lining up in career centers so that they can get seen by people.
Yeah.
Because their job essentially by the time they were doing their degree was taken over by AI. And the education system wasn't well versed, couldn't keep up with that, wasn't adaptable, didn't teach these students how to use AI to adapt and get well versed with the current job market. And by the time they spend these 3-4 years in a university trying to do the hard way, guess what? Someone came up with the AI, which you can just write whatever you want and it'll throw whatever results that you like.
So people then feel like they've wasted all this time. But I don't think they should feel like that if they do, because I think what you've learned in university, you just have to kind of adapt it to a new environment. And that is a solution for fixing imposter syndrome. So just adapting to a new environment, realizing that there's all these different skills you have that companies want to know about. So it's your personality type. And also how to fix your job search now. If you do have imposter syndrome, flip it on its head. You know, rather than reaching out to people and networking with, hey, I've got all this experience. If you don't have it, you're going to feel more imposter syndrome. But flip it on its head in the meaning of, I don't have all this experience. I've got these soft skills. Is that enough for your company to build the hard skills required for the role?
Yep.
That's a really authentic way to do it. And it also removes the pressure. And then when you start getting positive responses, because there are companies out there that know that people don't have the right experience. They understand that you might have gone to university and learned something that's not outdated, but just different now. And they want to see how you can look at it from an outside of the box perspective. And that's really a superpower if you start networking. And we're all
100%.
about networking here. So if you haven't networked for your job role or for the job role you want to do, now's the time to start doing it. And if you are feeling any form of imposter syndrome, just be honest about it.
I think the first step in anything, in any situation like that, is to address it. Because if you don't address it, it's like, oh, if I don't see the results, I don't have it. So first step would be having a sit down with yourself and, okay, do I feel these things? Perfect. Why do I feel these things? And the best way when I was doing my research on this topic, was how to overcome this. The reason we have this is because we want people to look at us in a light that is super good. So as I said, there's two type of imposter syndromes. One is the perfectionist, where everything needs to be right, everything needs to be a-okay. If it isn't, I'm screwed. And the second type is the solo person, where they prefer to do everything all by themselves because they're so worried that if someone else finds a weakness in them, they're screwed. So in both cases, and the best thing is, there's only one solution, is sitting with yourself, understanding, okay, what are these feelings? What and when do they come up? Is there a specific reason, or when I'm doing a specific task, is that when it come up? Okay, how do I tackle them? Is what version of myself I want people to see? Sit down and make a note of that. It's going to take some time. It's some self-reflecting shit, man. It's not for easy-hearted. And because I think why most people run away from that is they don't want to see the situation they're in, because they're like, no, I can't be that in that situation. That's messed up. But the first step of fixing anything is to realize where you are, and then having a version of yourself where you want to be. And then keeping that version, seeing that page that you've written down for yourself, that people, how people want to see, how you want people to see you. Have a look at it. What are the skills does that person have? Because everything is within you. You have all the things that you want to be. It's just you utilizing that, tapping into that every single day, and keep compounding on it as well. And that is why when I was looking for a job in my job search, the job that I went for required so much more experience, which I did not have. And when I started working with you and I got well versed with the How to Job platform, I realized, okay, how can I use that as a position of power instead of my weakness? And the only way you can do that is by being curious, showing your best self, having an elevator pitch, and be actually interested in the company or the place that you want to work at. What do you say?
I agree, 100%. Couldn't have put it better myself. But also what I'm getting from that, and I think the audience should get, is self-awareness.
Oh, yes.
So you have to be self-aware with what the actual, if you're going through any form of imposter syndrome, identifying which form, having a logical conversation with yourself, like you said, writing it down. What are the skills I have? They're not hard skills. They must be soft skills. If it's not soft skills, it must be a culture fit I'm looking for. What's the work style? What's my personality type? Who could I be if I find the right company that invests into me?
Yep.
And if that's the case, you could be someone great in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. But having that self-awareness, which is super, super important.
And for people who are going through imposter syndrome, there is someone out there who's a delusional optimist who has 1/4 of the knowledge and experience that you have, but just because they believe in themselves, they're in the positions that you want to be in. Hence, Jake Paul fighting Mike Tyson.
Exactly, yeah.
That guy, say no matter what about the Paul brothers, they're delusional optimists, and they do whatever they say. They believe it, and they actually make it happen. Call them whatever you want, but I think that is a skill that a lot of people lack. And once you start calling that out and putting it in the universe, the confidence that it comes, not overconfidence, there's a fine line between them. They back it up with their work. So whatever you put out that you want, if you back it up with the work that you're constantly doing, whether it's self-reflecting, researching in whatever field, if it's in job hunt, okay, what are the companies that I want to work for? With my previous experience and what I've studied, what are my possible solutions? Okay, if I'm do not want to go in the same industry I did my degree in, what are the companies I want to actually go work for? Why do I want to work for them? What makes me tick when I hear, let's say, about a company like Netflix or Warner Brothers or Paramount? oh, they have some original IP and the content they have, I really resonate with that. Perfect. That's your story. Connect with those people, ask those right questions, because I'm pretty sure there are people in all these companies who did not have the technical skills or the degree, but they were delusional optimists and they just went at it.
Couldn't put it better myself. Just do it. That's the main thing.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Yeah.
That's the main thing we always say, because there are delusionally optimistic people and they're getting the jobs you want to get into.
I mean, we have a new 47th president of the United States.
Delusional optimist.
I mean,
he got it.
He got it. And he had it the first time, lost the second time, came back the third time. I wish he was the first person to do that, but he's the second American president to do that. I think one was quite early on. But that is a massive example of being delusional optimists.
Yeah. Exactly.
And people are, now I'm saying like people are going to rebuttal and say, oh yeah, but he's a freaking billionaire. Oh, Jake Paul, he's a freaking multi-millionaire and he can do whatever he wants. But everyone started somewhere. Okay, let's take out Trump because he got $1 million from his dad to start his first venture. And then Jake Paul and Logan Paul were making videos when they were like 4 or 8 years old back in Ohio in their forest there. It's just you have to be willing to put yourself out there, I think.
And failing forward.
Oh, man.
Because if you make the mistakes and you learn from them, you're in a good position anyway. Because then tomorrow you're going to make a better decision. You're going to have a better result. And if you keep going forward and failing forward, you will get a good message back. A company wants to hire you. They'll want to interview you. You get an invitation on LinkedIn saying, hey, we want you to apply to this job. Which kind of brings me to self-awareness of your job search. Yep. So you remember I talked about the tier system? So you have 3 layers of your job search. You have application, recommendation, invitation. Application, the success rate at the moment, 0.47%, half 1%. So anybody applying for jobs right now, that's why you're getting rejected every single day. Application, 0.47%. Recommendation, 44%. Invitation, 71% chance of securing an interview and getting a job. So if you're stuck in the application phase, which I would say the majority of job seekers are, and they're not getting jobs and then getting auto-rejected, that imposter syndrome is piling up to the sky.
And with each rejection email that you get, it's like, oh, man.
Yeah. Yep. Now, when they start reaching out to people and they get recommended, they get an interview, that imposter syndrome tends to kind of shoot down a little bit. And then let's say you get a message one day on your LinkedIn and it says, hey, like, we want you to apply to this job. You start thinking, a company wants me to apply? That ultimately boosts your confidence. That dopamine hit must be amazing, better than any doom scrolling any day. So the aim of the game is to be not only self-aware, like you say, in who you are and what skills you have, but also to be self-aware about what the actual job market is. Because like I said, the 4 horsemen of the job search, you have ATS software. You've got a system eliminating CVs. You've got market saturation. So many people applying, nothing happening. 5,000 applications, a company can interview maybe 10 people. That's 4,990 people who are just auto-rejected. You're one of them. Then you have unicorn job syndrome, which is where 5 people in a company create a job advert and they all say, no, let's add 5 years experience, or this skill, that skill. So you've got too many chefs in the kitchen, literally. And then you have AI, which is the change of what that job will look like in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, which is a focus on soft skills. So those are the main 4 horsemen of your job search. So you put that into being self-aware about what you can do, how you actually hunt for jobs, then your imposter syndrome tends to minimize, and then you actually have a better shot. Does that make sense?
100%. And as Milo said, I want to make it clear that everyone goes through imposter syndrome in one way or the other. It's just, are you able to overcome it? And the reason you need to understand that is because the opportunities that you guys miss out on, just because you're not acting on it, just because you put yourself out, it's like, I don't think I'm the right fit for it. But what if you are? What if you are the right person, the right cultural fit, the right sort of, you have the right work ethic for that company, but you never applied for that role, so you never got it. You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take, and I 100% get that, because I was in the same position when I was job searching, I was like, another. If I'm gonna get another rejection email, let me save myself from that. Why? Let me save my inbox from another rejection email. You know, but when I went through the program, and I understood that maybe people who are gonna hire me, even they go through imposter syndrome. And one of the key things that I've learned in my job is people, as you said earlier, failing forward. And the most you learn out of is failure, not success. Success is, okay, this thing worked. But failure is, okay, why did it not work? How do we get back at it? And I had the opportunity to run into our CEO once. And a couple of weeks before that, I attended a town hall where he discussed about going for a position that he didn't get at his previous company. And then I just bumped into him, shook his hand. I was like, I attended your fireside chat a couple of weeks ago. You said you couldn't get that position. How did you overcome that rejection, and what did you do to move forward? And he was like, whoa. And he gave me 10 minutes of his time. We were in the kitchen. It's like, okay, this is my journey. This is what happened, and then I did this, and that was amazing. So being open, and also these when you're reaching out to these hiring managers, these companies, and when talking to these people, you kind of like, what is the toughest part of your job? What do you think you really need help in? What are your barriers to execution right now?
Just being genuinely authentic in the conversation. It works because you don't have to reproach hiring managers saying, hey, do you have any jobs? Here's my CV. Like, we have this joke, like, any jobs? People sound like that all the time.
I'm gonna get that framed and give it to you on your birthday next
Do you know
year.
what? I'll accept it. I'll take it because I say it all the time. And I think everyone
We
I
should have
speak to-
merch.
we should.
We should have merch.
We should.
Hi, any jobs.
Jobs, yeah.
T-shirt, mug, and a hoodie.
I think we should.
Yeah.
Before you guys know it, we'll probably have some merch with specific phrases on t-shirts. And let us know in the comments if you want to see that, because that could be quite interesting. So let's let's see how that goes. But also being able to have a structure, right? So in your job search, if you're applying, like you remember I said application, you've got a 0.47% chance. If you have no structure, no strategy, nothing, you're just limited to that. So you can make 1,000 applications, you might have one interview, and then you think, I've spent 5 weeks applying for jobs, 11 hours a week, that's the average, and I've got one interview, and it's a job that I don't really want to do. So no wonder people are kind of feeling bad about this. So that's one of the issues. But if you have a structure, then you start eliminating any imposter syndrome style feeling, because you can see, oh, okay, I'm like reaching out to people in a structured way. I'm reaching out to 20 people a day. They're working in companies I want to work for. I'm recognizing a company culture fit. These companies focus not just on hard skills, they focus on personality and then soft skills. And I've got a few of those, and I can open up a conversation, not saying, hey, here's my CV. I can say, hey, like in terms of soft skills, when it comes to an international job seeker, what does your company look for? What's the number one soft skill? And if you get a response, let's say you are an international job seeker, and you get a response that says communication. We want to make sure that if you join our team, that you can communicate effectively, that resonates with our culture of innovation. Let's say you get that. That's a genuine response. You can then send a better version of a response with your CV, and then you can ask for a meeting. Now, if you get a meeting, that's a recommendation. That's where the 44% chance comes through, because someone can actually see you. So you're not limited to ATS software eliminating you without a person seeing you. You're not you're limited to like market saturation because you're doing more than the average job seeker. You're not limited to 0.47% of a chance just because you've applied. You've actually spoken to a human being and you've had a genuine exchange. And the more genuine exchanges you have, the more you limit that bad feeling of like the unknown. Am I going to get a job? Is this going to work? Am I going to have to apply for 6 months to get 2 interviews? Which people are going through right now.
Actually, on the back of that, I want to ask you, since you speak to so many people, what are the top 3 things that you find like, these like imposter syndrome is like, let me rephrase that. Mm-hmm. A job seeker right now, mm-hmm. how can they figure out if they're going through imposter syndrome or not?
So when I speak to someone who's looking for a job right now, I can tell within 3 seconds if they have imposter syndrome without them telling me, even if they sound really confident. And it's just judging by the answers they give me to the questions that I ask them. What's the company you want to join? What's your top favorite 100% top of the food chain company you want to work for? I don't know. That's a problem. What industry are you interested in? Well, then they give 3 or 4 different industries within one sub-industry. Okay. What's the strategy you have to get the company to see your profile that's more than what's written on your CV? I don't have one. You probably have imposter syndrome to one degree. Now, if you've applied for jobs for 6 months, you've got a really bad case of imposter syndrome. You might not know it. You might not be conscious about it. You just might feel bad about your job search. But those 3 things are what I recognize that people have if they've got imposter syndrome in their job search. Now, how do you handle that? You write down on a piece of paper, as difficult as it sounds, you want to get into Google, write down Google. Google hires people with minimal experience. Google hires people based on their personalities, the connections they have, who refers people into Google. That happens today. There's probably someone right now interviewing at Google who got there because they started networking and you didn't. So write down the top company you want to join. Then the industry. Even though it's Google, you want to write down tech. But you want to be very clear about why you want to go into tech. And then you have to think about, well, if I would want to join Google and I want to work in tech, how do I then get Google to see and recognize skills that are not on my CV? Now, what do I mean by that? It's not your hard skills because they're probably on your CV, but things that you're doing. Like you jumped out of a plane with a parachute, which I think is absolutely amazing, by the way.
7 times.
7 times. Jesus Christ. Okay. So I'm never doing that, by the way. But that's courage. That's bravery. That's like you wanting to better yourself in one weird way, shape, or form. I don't know why you did it.
Or delusional optimism.
Or delusional optimism. Yeah. And that helps. And that works. And that's what we want to see, right? So how do you then talk about that? Do you put it on a CV? If an ATS system's reading a CV, they're not going to pick up on that. A human's not going to read it. But if you reach out to someone, you say, hey, soft skills, super important to me. I really want to be able to explain a little bit more than what's on my CV. Do you have 5 minutes to discuss? I jumped out of a plane 7 times to better myself and work on my self-development. Do you think they're getting messages like that a lot? Probably not. And someone's going to read that. And if they have time, they'll give you 5 minutes. And if you've got 5 minutes, then you can sell yourself more effectively.
I did not use that to get into the role I am in currently. I jumped last year, so
you jumped out of a plane after you got into a job?
Yeah, because I did not have the money before that.
Right. And the money started rolling in.
It's very expensive, and that was one of my splurges. And I
Nice.
do not. It's because the feeling of we get scared quite a few times in our life, but it's very instantaneous. It's very small. But going and getting in a plane and I haven't had that feeling, and you sitting in it is just so uncomfortable. You hate every being of it, but you can't show it because there's 15 other people in the plane who have the biggest smile and they're ready to jump and they're trying to figure out, okay, so when we go down, you're going to hold my leg, we're going to make this pattern. And you're like, man, how does Tom Cruise does it, man?
Yeah.
But that free fall feeling, and when you pull the chute, and that's when it's like when you have nothing, you're literally just floating in the air, just looking up the horizon. Man, that's one of the best feelings I've ever had. And I was lucky enough to do one jump during sunset. Nothing beats that.
That sounds really cool.
That
actually.
is,
but I'll never do it. There's no chance. There's no amount of money you can pay me.
It's not easy. I'll be honest. I think I am more scared of doing it now when I had not done it. Because I know that feeling that I went through, and that feeling, just thinking about it, can make me uncomfortable. But it's about being comfortable, being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So you never know. Maybe I'll just take 2 weeks off next year, go to Spain, and pump out 50 jumps.
As long as you film it and we add it onto our podcast, I think that would be pretty cool.
Perfect.
Imagine that.
We can do
That's
that.
a deal, right?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So you said one thing which I really like, being comfortable, being uncomfortable. And someone told me quite a long time ago in a sarcastic way, hey, Milo, like all the best things happen in your comfort zone, right? And it sounds wrong, but it's not the case. Complete sarcasm. All the best things will happen when you're uncomfortable. And if you are feeling imposter syndrome, that's more of a signal to handle it and work on it.
I have a good story about it. I'm pretty sure a lot of people must have seen the Squid Games on Netflix.
Yeah.
So the creator, the writer of the show, had that show for like 10 years. He had written, and people kept denying him. He didn't get the opportunity to make it.
I didn't know that.
And when he actually made it, when he was shooting the first season, he went through so much imposter syndrome. He lost 9 teeth out of stress
Wow.
just off making that show. He's like, I don't know what's gonna. Imagine the amount of stress, man. When I get stressed, I can feel it here.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can.
Yeah.
And then it goes.
Yeah.
Imagine the stress a person has to go through to lose 9 perfect teeth.
Yeah. I mean, that's so some people have it worse than others.
Exactly.
And then you kind of think like getting a job actually in the grand scheme of things is a
It's nothing.
simple process.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're, following your dreams and you want to sell a show to Netflix, I get how competitive that is, insanely competitive. That's
I
probably
mean, everything's competitive, man.
Yeah.
You're going for a job, okay? Maybe 10,000 people are applying for that job. That job pays maybe 50 to 100K. Perfect. You want to pitch to one of the biggest streamers in the world? Okay. There's going to be, I don't think so, 10,000 people, maybe 1,000. But the problem is, people you're going to be pitching to, you can't just write an email. You have to be introduced to them. You have to happen to meet them somewhat very organically, and then you have to have some sort of history that you can back yourself up with. That gives you a foot through the door. Okay, they might hear you out if you have something. Perfect. Come in. Pitch to us now. So you're going into a room of 20 people who are gonna decide if your vision does not come to fruition. They hold the key to your vision, your success. And if you are able to convince all those 20 people in that room that this is why it's going to be success, you might have a shot. Imagine the stress of that.
so job searching sounds really easy now.
I think, yeah, in the greater scheme of things,
Yeah,
it's a job, man.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's not going to be this one, there's going to be next one.
To extrapolate that for a job seeker, they need to have an actual elevator pitch.
Yes.
So when you get in front of someone, to be able to kind of sell something.
30 seconds, you can make or break.
100%.
Yeah.
Then you need to be able to have a structure to know who the people are. Like in your analogy now, there's a producer out there. There's someone who actually allows people to put shows on Netflix. If there's a person who allows people to get interviewed in companies, you need to find out who that person is. You need to be able to find out who they are and how to pitch them. Pitch them before you pitch them. So pitch them to give you 5 minutes. In that 5 minutes, you've got a 30-second elevator pitch. But then it kind of goes back to my original point, which is you need to know what you're looking for. So many people right now that have imposter syndrome, they just don't know what they're looking for. Oh, I don't think I can do this job. Okay, well, what's the company you want to join? What if that company actually recognizes the fact that you don't have all the experience and they want you to have leadership qualities? You may have those. And that's the bargaining chip that you have. If you don't have the hard skills and you've got the soft skills and the company's looking for soft skills, you have no imposter syndrome. You have a genuine solution to a problem that you thought you were facing. Meaning, hey, I've got this soft skill. I don't have the hard skills, but this company is going to give me the hard skills in exchange for my leadership quality. That flips the script on its head.
It's so important. And please don't keep developing yourself as well, because that's what any company wants to see. If you're working on yourself, irrespective of if someone's watching you or not, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant took 1,000 shots before a game. That's why they made those shots when people were actually watching. Do all the work. That's when people are not watching. That's the time to work. That's the time to, know about yourself. Get that pitch. Get everything ready. And be ready to be able to talk about it. And people are genuinely interested in you, and they will hear you out, because at the end of the day, you're selling yourself to a person, and the person may or may not like you. There's a 50-50 chance, but guess what? I'll take a 50% chance than just sending out an application and having less than 0.5% chance.
Yeah. So if you apply, 0.5%. If you get in front of the right person, 44%. Now, just to quickly wrap up, so we know what our audience can do today. Being able to recognize what type of imposter syndrome they have. If they're a graduate, it's completely normal. Even if you've got a lot of experience, it's completely normal. Having a structure to give you some feedback. So not just applying, actually reaching out to people. Being able to have a confident elevator pitch, who they are, what they can bring to the team, the company, the industry. And just generally being self-aware about themselves and self-aware about their job search process. If they've got that part right, I think they will eliminate the majority of their imposter syndrome.
Yeah, and not just for job seeking, but for life. That self-reflection bit that sets you up for life. It's one of the hardest things to do, to accept the situation you're in and to realize my dreams and aspirations are to be up here, but right now I'm here. Getting comfortable with that fact is not easy, but it's the first step towards the right direction. Then you can actually start planning your process towards that.
I agree.
Yeah.
What an amazing way to wrap it up. So, guys, we hope you liked this episode of Imposter Syndrome. Like and subscribe. Any actual conversations you want us to have or topics you want us to cover, please let us know in the comments. Without further ado, I think that's it.
See you guys next week.
See you later.